Davóg, Rynne, welcome back to Belgium.
How are you there, Davóg?
It's very nice to have you back.
Great to see you, my man.
It's been a while.
It has. It's been a long while.
How long has it been?
It's been since the very beginning of 2020. Whoa. Just before the whole nonsense kicked off, man. I did a couple of dates here in Belgium and then went back home and was already preparing to come back for the springtime of 2020. I had some lovely tours, a lovely gig set up, and then all of a sudden the dreaded sea hits the world, and it became what it became, I suppose, you know.
Yeah, but it's nice to have you back anyway. You have a few gigs lined up.
Great to be here, man. It's so nice to be back in Belgium. I can only say this so many times. I did a concert on Wednesday, was it? No, it wasn't. It was Tuesday. I did a concert in the Steiner School in Ghent. Spent a lovely day with the young teenagers in the Steiner School in Ghent. Singing songs, talking about Ireland, playing the tunes and telling the stories, and just lovely stuff. Curious young people, all speaking perfect English. I'm constantly, every time I come here, I'm amazed at the young people's capacity to learn to speak English and to be as curious as they are about Ireland. And you know, it's great.
It is great.
And then yesterday I did a really lovely concert at Dirk Freyer's. I think that's how I pronounce his surname. Sorry if I got it wrong, Dirk. Dirk's house in oh gosh, where was it? Vinnige, something like that. Sorry again about the pronunciations. And just a lovely concert, a house concert that I know happens up here in Belgium that we don't really have in France. I live in France, for those of you who don't know.
Yeah.
And it just lovely, just so warm. There's about 20 people at it, and we were all singing together by the end of the night. Community. This is the beauty of songs. Like, you know, it brings people together. It creates harmony. It creates good vibes, and people just, they let themselves go. You know yourself,
Absolutely.
you know the way it is, and that's something that we've missed so much. We musicians come as much as the audience members have missed the live gigs. And it's still slow, I have to be honest.
Yeah.
Like, you know, I mean, last night was really exceptional. Wednesday night, middle of the week. Thank you, everybody, for coming. And but we really need to try and figure out a way to get back to the way things were before the dreaded Corona came along. Because I can feel people are still reluctant to be going out, and when they go out, there's still a little bit still that bit of fear going on. And let's get together and play music and listen to music together, folks. This is what it's all about. This is the magic of it all, isn't it?
I know your first musical endeavour was a great musical album. Talk to me about the origins of that and where that all started.
So Talk to Me. It's an album that I brought out, my first album. Very happy with it, very happy with it. I recorded it back home in Milltown, Malbay, in Martin O'Malley's studios, which have just won an award recently. Well done, Martin, fair play to you. And had a really lovely time with Martin. He's a bit like yourself, to be honest with you. He's just one of these gentle guys that guide you gently, and just a lovely guy. And I spent 4 or 5 days in his studio. It was a very quick recording.
It didn't sound like it. It's a great recording.
Well, I was limited in time, and of course studios cost money, so you know, you just let's get it done. So,
and that's out now. Is that available just digitally?
It's oh gosh, I don't have any actual physical CDs left. I've run out of CDs, and to be honest with you, I'm starting to think of moving away from CDs.
Yeah,
because you know, I get the impression when people come to buy my CD, I'm pretty convinced that they don't actually have a CD at home.
That's right.
They don't have a CD in car anymore because they don't have CDs in cars. They don't build them in cars anymore. So they're really nice people who come to buy your album, to support you, to talk to you. It's contact. Because, you know, after gigs, people want to have contact. They like to see the autograph being written, and they want to get the photograph with the artist and have a chat about the trip to Ireland and all of that kind of thing. And it is lovely, but essentially I want them to listen to my music. And they can't listen to my music because it's on CD.
That's right. Is it digitally available?
It is digitally available now on Bandcamp. Okay. On Bandcamp, yeah.
Lovely.
So yeah.
And then you moved away. Then you decided, okay, I'm going to make a poetry album. What not the most recent poetry album, but The Seeds of Hope, which is another wonderful poetry album. And of course, it's not just you saying poems. It has a lot of musical, beautiful musical stuff going on behind the scenes of that album as well.
Yeah.
It's very nice to listen to. Tell us how that came about.
This album was a collaboration with several different poets who I met online. A lot of whom I met online. Some of them I know personally. Nora Ward, who lives in France. She's a bit away from me. She's about 2.5 hours away from me. I haven't seen her in a long time. She certainly was very involved in the making of that album. Dennis Kelleher is another one. Dylan Longman is another one. Just trying to think of the names off the top of my head now. Sorry, but it was a collaboration. Robert Shanahan, of course, down in Tasmania. He's an Irish poet down there. And just different poets. Sulik is another one. I'm trying to think of everyone. Sorry, whoever I forget, forgive me. But what really stimulated that album was the refugee crisis in France and the homeless crisis in Ireland. So I'm very close back in Ireland with a woman called Josie O'Brien from Ennis. She's a good friend of my mother's, and she's very a warrior woman with the homeless. She cooks Christmas dinners, Easter dinners for them. She goes out every day to make sure that they're okay and all of that. Just one of these women that is constantly active with it now. And to be honest with you, thankfully now, in this year, she's starting to step back a little bit from it because she's getting on in years and she's really not able for it anymore. It takes a lot of effort and psychological... It's tough going. It's tough going, being confronted with people who are homeless all the time. And she played her part. So, it's time for somebody else to take the role. And so anyway, long story short, she certainly was very much part of my motivation to do something.
Where was that album actually recorded then? Okay.
It was recorded in Lyon with a guy called Vincent Lassier, who's a young Lyonnais guy who I met through a bar he used to work in, where I used to play, and he has his own little home studio, and we got talking, and he just expressed interest in recording. He had the know-how, he had the little home studio set up, and off we went to record it. The other part of the motivation for the album was the refugee crisis in France, and I knew a woman in Lyon who also was very active with Act for Ref is the name of her association, and she'd collect clothes and she'd be very active in helping refugees get placement and getting their papers sorted out and all of that. And those two women were very much part of that. And the proceeds for the album goes to both of those associations.
That's really
it's a benefit album.
That's really cool. And people can get that again digitally online?
People can get that digitally online via Bandcamp. That's right, yeah. That's right.
Seeds of Hope. Love
it.
it.
Seeds of Hope, yeah. Have a listen to it. Nice one.
You said you're a poem writer as well, of course, which you have some very fine ones. Come to the Path, of course, being the title track of the brand new album, which I'm going to get you to recite in a moment. But what's the inspiration behind that poem?
Come to the Path is an invitation into it'll be the first track on the album. It's an invitation into my world. It's an invitation to sit down, to make yourselves comfortable, and to put on your earphones. And listen to the album. I'd really appreciate if you listen to the album from beginning to end, because it's all connected. And Come to the Path is really Gangani asking you to sit down, as opposed to, the whole album really comes from the Gangani part of me as opposed to the Davóg part of me, if you like. Yeah. And Come to the Path is really, it's an invitation into the room and into the space, and come to the path. The spirits are calling you. Come to the path. The spirits are calling you. Come to the path that the ancients knew and preserved for you. Come to the path. Come to the forest. The spirits are calling you. Come to the forest where the fairies run free and the old ones be. Come to the forest. Come to the clearing. The spirits are calling you. Come to the clearing and walk the moonlit paths to circles danced. Come to the clearing. Come to the path. The spirits are calling you. Come to the path that the ancients knew and preserved for you. come to the path.
When do you expect to bring that out, or
I'll be bringing that album hopefully out now at the beginning of December. I've been hemming and hawing about it for quite a couple of months. The crowdfunding campaign is still going on. It's a bit slow, I have to be honest with you, which is one of the reasons why I was hemming and hawing a little bit. How am I going to do it? I'll tell you how I wanted to do it. I know I still want to do it. I was talking earlier about CDs and all of that, and I had this idea to bring it out on a USB key. And you can get these specially custom-made USB keys. It's made of wood. It's lovely, lovely little finish on it. And you've got your title of your album on it. And you can put anything that you want on it. You can put the album, for sure. You can have a nice photograph collection, for example. I love to do photography like yourself. I love the old bit of snaps of whatever. You can add bios. You can add all sorts of things. Put a little video in, an introduction. You can do all sorts of things with it. And honestly, I think it's a good way to go. Think how handy it is as well. If you're going to a gig, for example, you know there's going to be about 30 people at it. You charge them up. You charge up your USB keys. You put it whatever you want on it, and it's in a small little box.
Yeah.
You remember how heavy the CDs are? When you're a touring musician and you've got your box of CDs with you, I can tell you it adds to the weight. So, so the USB key, but I'm putting it on hold for the minute because I want to make some more sales. I want to make some more money through the crowdfunding and through the digital sales, hopefully. So in the new year, please God, I'll be bringing that out on a USB key.
Yeah, so people can pick it up physically.
People can pick it and buy it at the concerts. Yeah,
it's a
exactly.
Good idea. It's a good
idea. Also, you can also put 2 albums on it, 3 albums on it.
No, you could.
Do you know what I mean? You could put your whole collection on it, and
which is great.
And people then they then take it off the USB, put it on their computers, and then they have a free USB key. Be shady now, I tell you, up here for thinking, boy.
No flies on you, right?
No flies on me at all.
And but of course, like all your older work, people can easily go to your Bandcamp page and get it on there digitally. Yeah,
Bandcamp honestly is the only platform I use now. This is something that happened with Seeds of Hope, which really annoyed me, was that I went through an online thing called TuneCore, I think it's called, a platform where they produce your albums, and they dispatched it on all of the platforms, and. Lads, at the end of the day, Spotify doesn't pay money. So we're devaluing our music, we're devaluing our work, we're constantly doing that. We artists and the punters who buy, who stream, and stream for free. And we're sitting here looking at the feckin' empty table, like, you know what I mean? I've got children to feed, I've got children going to university in a couple of years' time, you know. So we musicians have to really think out of the box on how to get people to come back to actually buying our music, you know, and listening to our music when they're buying it. Again, the CDs, they're not going to get listened to, I think, you know. So I'm just trying to think out of the box and find ways of you know.
Yeah, but hopefully, as you said, December will be the release, and then hopefully in the new year, maybe something physical to start gigs.
Absolutely, absolutely. I don't think I'll probably have the USB key within 2 months. Yeah, within 2 months. So beginning of next year, I'll have the USB key out.
We're coming into the winter solstice soon, and I remember a poem you did. It could have been at a gig here in Belgium before, called "The Lords of Light." I just thought it was a fitting one, and maybe you'll recite it for us. But before you do, maybe just give us a little bit of a background, if you wouldn't mind.
Yeah, it's a great poem. Before metals sleep from the slag or crucible. Lords of Light is written by, it's a Newgrange based poem written by Frank Callery. Frank is a Kilkenny-based poet who I've collaborated with a few times before on his poetry. A lot of the poetry now I do. I've written a couple of poems, and some of them are on my album. Seeds of Hope is a poem of mine. Come to the Path is a poem of mine. But it's collaborative. It's all different poets poets of today. You know, alive poets who are alive and living and who've got stuff to be saying, like, to know of what's going on today. The Lords of Light, Newgrange, by Frank Callery. Before metals seeped from slag or crucible, when night light was rush, fired in tallow or fear-scarred moon, This was raised. Megalithic hoarder of secrets, its piling reverberant on the incus of race, tells of hirsute forebearers, grimed in sweat and grunt, sounding the tally of scavenged stones. Who ciphered these great stones, saw their geometry spiral, to amaze posterity, shunned all approximations, to engender the dense precision of their art, craving each moon's connivance, the punctuality of the sun.
So you have a lot of musicians on this, even though it's a poetry album, you have a lot of musicians on there, and you've got a wonderful harpist, and you have all kinds of musicians backing you up. Beautiful soundtrack, soundscape.
Soundscape.
It's a soundscape, really,
to
the album. Just tell me a little bit about where the album was made and how it came about.
Yeah, it's a COVID album, really. It started at the beginning, really, not quite at the beginning. I was doing Facebook Lives, as a lot of musicians were taken to do Facebook Lives, and I was doing daily poetry readings on Facebook, and I was doing hourly long concerts and stuff like that, and really enjoying it. It certainly helped the stun of the COVID restrictions and the complete cease of work. Sure. And the cease of touring and etc. So I was invited by a local down where I live in Leon, near Leon. I was invited by the local town, who have their own Facebook page, to come along and to do a Facebook Live directly on their page. Oh, thank you very much. I'd love to. So I did that Facebook Live, and the day afterwards I got a lovely message from a young man who said, "I'd love to meet up with you," in English, which is quite unusual in France. You know, anyway. So I was impressed with his English for a start. He spent a lot of time in America, which is why he spoke such good English, and we hooked up. I invited him over to the house for lunch. He came into the house with his guitar, and we had a lovely lunch, and we played a few songs. He accompanied me with the guitar. Very nice, lovely indeed. Off he went and didn't think anything more of it. And then the following day he invited me to his house. So I walk into his room, and it's a studio. It's a home studio. He's got guitars, basses on the wall. He's got the instruments everywhere. He's got the whole thing worked out. And I'm like, wow, okay. And this is where he started to kind of go, let's do some recording together. What do you think? And I was like, oh, very good, interesting. And as I say, I was at the time doing a lot of poetry readings, and I was really delving into poetry and really enjoying it. COVID certainly brought me closer to poetry and poetry reciting and dramatising poetry and stuff like that, which I really enjoy to do. Great. So Nicholas Pichet is his name. Sorry for the mispronunciation, and he himself is a musician. So he created these soundtracks and these soundscapes. Your word, very good word. And we really had a lovely time with it.
What other sort of forms of work do you do within the business?
Well, now recently I've gotten into directing. I was down in Toulouse there not so long ago, and 2 weeks ago for the Samhain, for the Samhain festivities. So these guys down in Toulouse, they've been doing the Samhain thing last year and the year before, and I just wanted to add a little bit of substance to it, because it was all about costumes, their previous ways of doing it, fire and costumes, and all very good, fantastic. Sure. And gosh, the French do the costumes very well. Yeah. But I just saw a real opportunity to add poetry, storytelling to it and all of that. So I had a wonderful time doing a production of the Puka. You might know what the Puka is. He's a half man, half horse, and he comes out in Halloween, as we call it nowadays, in Samhain. And it was an interesting collaboration, and something that I've been wanting to do for a while is to collaborate with other cultures, other people from other cultures. So I got together with a group called Astria Caravan, who are a Berber theatre company, Berber from the North Africa. Oh. And so I had him tell the main guy there tell the story. So it was kind of an interesting contrast to have a Berber guy telling an Irish story. Absolutely. And there I am with Gangani with the bower on the background and two dancers. and we just created a great old ambience.
I want to ask you about a couple of. I know you're going to perform a couple of poems for us tonight, but one of them I wanted to ask you about was the Puka. You spoke about the Puka earlier on.
The Puka,
yeah. And that's one of the tracks from the album. You perform it with the Bowron.
It sure is, yeah.
Is that blood on the Bowron beside you?
It's a bit of blood on the Bowron, yeah.
These your blood?
It is my blood. Well, you see, just a little bit. It's not very dramatic. You probably won't come up with the camera.
Because you play with the hand.
I play with the hand. Yeah. So if you're playing for a couple of days in a row, you can get a little bit. What happened to me once, which is a very funny story, was that I was just playing the Bowron, and I was outside in a parade kind of a situation at a festival in Corsica, 10 years ago, and I chaffed my hand just against the wall, just banged my head again, a small, tiny little cut at the top of my finger. But you're playing, and you continue playing. Of course, the more you play, the more blood is going. I tell you, the whole Bowron was covered in blood. It made for a gas old spectacle. So the Puka was, which I was talking to you about just earlier on, about the show I did down in Toulouse, and we did the Puka. I got it translated into French. An Irish woman who lives in Paris, called Stephanie McCarthy, did a wonderful job on the translation of the poem. The midnight hammer strikes its mark, the belfry's tone relayed. This night has been disrupted in its echoing serenade. A gloom fills this midnight hour with each resounding strain. Evil dreams are brought to life as the Puka marks his claim. Beyond the town on a wooded hill, prancing in eager delight, demon nostrils flare and blow, hooves hammering with a spite. Tossing head and ruffled mane, his purpose sets to a run. No longer can he refrain to draw out the chosen one. He charges ever forward. Blazoned eyes are a-gleaming. His coat black as a shadow. Behind his tail is streaming. Ear long to arrive at the chosen home. Calls out his victim's name. No one can refuse a Puka's call, or an evil curse remains.
Where does this Gangani character come from, or is that?
He comes from the depths of my soul. He comes from the depth of my soul. Listen, he comes from a want to go back into theatre a little bit. It's my alter ego. Gangani lets me do things that I don't trust myself to do. Do you know that kind of a way?
Yeah.
Where you put on the bit of makeup, you put on a bit of a costume, and whereas when you're just being yourself, you're being yourself, So I just wanted to create a character that would let me go a bit further, delve a little further into the craft and into the acting.
Absolutely.
and a bit of a shamanic thing going on, a bit of a druid thing going on. So I'm playing around with all those wonderful cultures that we have in Ireland, and indeed in Wales and in Scotland and in England. And
just speak a little bit about your Dublin, the background you had in Dublin in theatre.
Sure,
Yeah.
sure. Listen, I came back from London in the late '80s, and I was very lucky. I got a chance to get a course in one of the first Gaiety School of Acting, and did that for a year, and then went on to do productions like The Borstal Boy and the Gaiety. I did 3 productions. I was very lucky. I did 3 productions with the Abbey Theatre. Went to Hong Kong with Playboy the Western World. Went to New York with Playboy the Western World. You know, gosh, what a great experience, and worked with fantastic actors, many of whom are gone now. Do you remember Tom from the Reardons?
Oh wow!
I can't remember his name now. Anyway, he was in the Playboy, as was Dara Kelly, as was Nuala Hayes, and just working with quality actors. So, and then of course I went on to stage management, and I lived in Germany for 10 years and worked. Not so much in theatre, but in music, and worked backstage in the music industry, and as a technician. And then I was very lucky to work in a Broadway production of the musical Tommy, The Who, deaf, dumb and blind boy and all of that, and worked in various different positions there. And that's where I really got my training as a stage manager, under the careful eye of David Foster, who now lives in Indonesia as a hippie. He's a gas man. and yeah, so theatre was very big in my early 20s.
Yeah.
And then again, once I moved to Germany, because employment wasn't a great thing, and I fell in love with a German girl as well, of course. But unemployment was a big problem in the early 90s in Dublin, and I moved to Germany, and was there for 10 years, and and then came back to Ireland in 1998 and went back into theatre again, and went to stage management and toured with various different productions. So great. And then back in France. I've been working for the last 15, 16 years in different theatres and different productions and
so a big melting
festivals, huge melting pot, until the day came when I hurt my back.
Oh.
We were doing a fit up for a show, and I just really, really hurt my back, slipped a disc, and I was out of action for about 6 or 7 months. Had newborn babies at home, and the guitar sitting in the corner, and I just picked up the guitar and rediscovered music. Music really helped me during that period of time, and that's when I started playing again, and doing less of the technical work and doing more of the promoting music. And then I encouraged myself to start playing music myself. Yeah, that's the quick run of it all.
Yeah, for talking about it.
Yeah, there's something quite free about interpreting as opposed to your own songs. Do you know what I mean?
That's right. There is. Yeah. Kind of less pressure sometimes.
There's a bit less pressure.
There is.
There's a bit
and
less
you can
pressure.
Put your own twist on it.
And you can put your own twist on it and your own interpretation on it. I just love it.
Yeah.
I just love it. And I know the voice is very suited to reciting. My grandfather was a radio presenter. He was one of the Sunday miscellany presenters, and which prompted me to do my own radio show, which I did in Vienna back about 10 years ago, something like that. And the voice is an instrument, as you know yourself, Dahi. And one of the other collaborations that I've had with this album is with a Chinese. You know these Chinese fiddles on the knee? They do a fantastic and a really, really guttural kind of a shamanic sound out of it. And his name is, I'm gonna read it out now because it's quite a hard one to pronounce. Liang Zhou is his name, and he's based in Lyon. Oh, wow. And we hooked up. I played a support to one of his groups. We were part of 3 groups playing, and I was the first part. And we did a kind of everyone on stage at the end of the night, and that kind of a vibe, lovely kind of a thing. So that's how we first met up. And I have a poem. I found a poem called "The Tale of the Swans," written by a Mongolian shaman poet called Bayar Dugarov. And I was like, gosh, it'd be interesting now to get together with Liang and with his fiddle. And so we did. We got together, and wow, that's something to really, really look forward to listening to that, because I didn't actually give you a recording of it because it's on a separate thing. But so it's wow. I'm very happy with this album. I'm very happy with the way it worked out. I really want to dramatise it. I want to put it on stage. I'm looking into ways of doing that.
How do you envisage that?
I envisage it using video projections, images. It'll be a Gangani production, of course, so there'll be the Gangani.
The horns will come out.
The horns will come out by you. You're bold. The horns will come out. So it'll be a Gangani thing. So the costume will be getting on, and there'll be fire, and there'll be brimstone, and you'll be down in the cave, and we'll do kind of we'll go all dramatic on it.
Nice.
I think there's something in that, and I have a theatre background anyway, so sure, why wouldn't I?
Absolutely.
Why wouldn't I? And Siobhan Armstrong, then I got in touch with because I'd heard a track of hers, and she's a professor of the harp, is what you'd call her. She really has studied the harp, and she's a wonderful harpist herself, and plays old medieval harps and steel string harps, and she's lovely harpist. And I listened to the track, and I said, "Gosh, I have a poem that would sit lovely with that together." So I asked her if she would mind if I would use that track. And so there was no getting her to come into studio or anything like that. It was just a simple permission given to use her track. It was written in 1385 by Godfrid Fionn O'Dálaig. And it just, when I heard Siobhan's track, and I just said, we've got to collaborate on this. This is gonna, and she was delighted to be asked, and it was great. It was really, it's a lovely track. I'm very pleased with it, yeah.
Well, we're going to play out with that track.
Good.
Thanks very much for being here, Davóg. It's a pleasure talking to you.
Harp of Knock le Koshker, you who bring sleep to eyes long sleeplessness. Sweet, subtle, plangent, glad, cooling grave. Excellent instrument with smooth, gentle curve, trilling under red fingers. Musician that has charmed us, red, lion-like, of full melody. You who lure the bird from the flock, you who refresh the mind, brown spotted one of sweet words, ardent, wondrous, passionate. You who heal every wounded warrior, joy and allurement to women, familiar guide over the dark blue water, mystic, sweet sounding music. You who silence every instrument of music, yourself a sweet plaintive instrument, dweller among the race of Con, instrument yellow, brown and firm. The one darling of sagas, restless, smooth, sweet of tune, crimson star above the fairy hills, breast jewel of high kings. Sweet, tender flowers, brown harp of Diarmid, shape not unloved by hosts, voice of cuckoos in May. I have not heard music ever such as your frame makes since the time of the fairy people. Fair brown, many-coloured bough, gentle, powerful, glorious. Sound of the calm wave on the beach, pure shadowing tree of pure music. Carousels are drunk in your company. Voice of the swan over shining streams. Cry of the fairy women from the fairy hill of Lair. No melody can match you. Every house is sweet stringed through your guidance. You, the pinnacle of harp music.